Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, Brad and Claire,
Hello.
here with Will from the Weekend Homestead, and doggone it, we are trying out some new tech tonight, and we've got you with screens. We're making Skype work, we're doing it with OBS, and we're talking trash. No, we're talking tractors. We're talking farm tech. We're talking all good things. How are you this evening, Will?
I'm good. How are you doing, sir?
Finer than a frog's hair, my friend. I am giddy, and I don't use that term lightly, because we are talking about farm tech. And I personally am just super excited because our lives are getting ready to change in a major way coming up here real soon. And things like tractors and machinery and all that kind of stuff is headed our way quick. And so I got to get an education. I got to get it fast. And you're going to help me, doggone it, right?
Absolutely, I am. Everything is good.
Woot woot. Okay, so now I have written down a couple things that I'd really like to talk about tonight, and we've got some images, set aside here, pictures picked out, and I'd like to start with let's talk. You know what? We'll save the second one for later. Let's talk implements. We've been talking tractors versus skid steers versus ATVs, all the different snowplow things. But let's jump on into, okay, what are you going to actually do with these things, these tractors? What are the basic implements that are, number one, needed, number two, not needed, number two, just for specifics? What are things that are going to be usable all around things? And well, what's what? Give me the 411, the basic overview.
All right. So we've been talking, the basics of tractors are things that rotate, and pushing and pulling are really the things, and lifting and lowering are really the things that tractors do. And we've talked about a lot of different things, a lot of different ways that we can use them. We talked about different models. We talked about, should you get a skid steer? Should you get all these different things? Quite honestly, one of the things that we should talk about is the stuff that you can attach to tractors, because that also might change your opinion of kind of what they do and how they work and everything else. So I think that
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Not often that I crack up on the show, but that one there, you got me. So, but the short of it is one of the things that we were talking about the other day is like, okay, so besides the tractor, what could we get? What could we use it for? So I thought, hey, let's figure out a way to pick a couple simple implements and talk about them to figure out if it's something you could use or not. Because I guarantee you, every time you go to Tractor Supply, every time you go to the tractor store, or you go to a farm and country store, or any of that kind of stuff, you're going to walk in there and you're going to go, oh, I need that, or I need one of those, or I need one of these, and so on. So I thought that would be a good topic for us to talk today.
Great. So where should we start?
Let's go through. We're going to talk about mostly all the items that I sent over to you are items that hook up to the back of the tractor. So
Okay.
things that would hook up on what's called your 3-point hitch, which is a really simple hookup. And then off of that, you have the rotary, which is the PTO. So we're going to talk about things that run off the PTO and the things that run off of the 3-point hitch.
Okay. How about we start with, say, the sod, what is it, a sod soiler? Is that what that's called? So what do we do with that?
All right. We got a photo?
It is up.
It says it. There we go. Subsoiler. So if you have area on your property that you have issues with water, think of a subsoiler as two things. One, it's very inexpensive. Usually you can find these on Craigslist as cheap as $50 to $75. You can find them new at the store for about $100 to $150. Somebody's saying that the mic is too low for me.
For you?
Yeah, volume seems really low for us.
Oh, okay. I think I know what. We're still working through some problems, guys. I actually just have to turn this microphone up a little bit because...
Do I need to stand up on my chair?
No. I have to actually turn the volume up on mine. Here we go. Try that on for size.
How's this? Does this sound a lot better?
That should give you guys a little more volume. How's that?
Okay, well, let me get that down then. All right. How's that?
I think it's better. It's cranking us out of here, but I think they should be able to hear better.
it says that I need to turn the volume up and I need to get some ice cream. There's no ice cream tonight, guys. No ice cream. Sorry. Okay, so subsoiler. So what a subsoiler originally was intended for is you put it on the back on your 3-point hook. You see those two little pins on the left right side?
Yep.
They hook on your pin connectors, and then the top piece is where your top link connects. So that's your 3 points. And what this thing does is, let's say you have some water out in a pasture, and the water just keeps sitting out there, and it gets super muddy, and you keep having problems. Drive your tractor through, you drop this thing down into the ground, and basically it cuts a slit in the sod or in the grass. And the whole point of it is that the water then will seep down into that location, and it basically gets rid of the water. That's the original intent. But the other piece is that you can use it for, let's say you're clearing out a trail and you have rocks or something like that. You can drag it through the ground and it'll knock up the rocks. On the back of it, there's a spot where, let's say you wanted to run some electrical wire from the house to the other side. Have you ever seen it when the professional guys run the wire underground and they just take the blade and they stick it down in the ground and then they just run the wire right behind it all the way through your property for irrigation or for electrical? This thing does that too. I like this thing because it's a cheap, easy tool that can do multiple things on your property. They actually have another version of it that has a little bit wider of a blade. So instead of having that little thin blade on there, it has a wider one, which you can use to do like make potato mounds if you want to. Like you drive down your row and it'll just cut the row, or you can use it as a single row cultivator to kind of turn over some ground in between your rows of plants and things like that. So lots of different little things that you can do with this thing, but I thought it was a cheap, easy way to get started. It's probably the cheapest of the 3-point tools that we're going to talk about tonight. That one falls in the category of pushing and pulling. That's a pulling device. You pull it behind your tractor and it does different things.
So what would a new one versus a used one cost?
$49.99 to $79.99 used on Craigslist. I've seen them on Tractor Supply for sale for $119, brand new.
Nice. And but that doesn't require PTO. You're just dragging it. You're pulling it.
You're dragging it. Yep, it's just a drag implement. There's nothing to it. You hook your 3-point connections up to it and you can go. The thing I like about it is if you have to run little irrigation lines or if you have to run electrical out to something or whatever it is, that will do that for you.
Well, and it sounds to me like that's a really great idea, but you'd have to be super careful to make sure you're not cutting through power and stuff that's buried.
Right. Now, the first thing I recommend when you guys get this property and get it set up, call Digger's Hotline and have them come out and mark your entire property. Say, hey, we're going to put a shed in or something like that, and I need to know where all the things are. It's no cost to you. I think you call it Badger 411 or something like that, and they will come out and they'll mark everything. And then what I did was I took my camera phone and I took pictures of it to show where all the little flags are in the yard, and I saved that photo so that next time I was doing something, I could go back and look at the piece of note that I wrote down with the picture that shows, oh, from the edge of the barn 30 feet out is where the electrical line runs, or hey, the whatever is there. And then if you know there's nothing out in that whole area, go to town. So do that as one of your first things on the list.
Genius. Thank you for that. I'll tell you what though, I did get an email as we were, talking about the different properties and when we ended up settling in Wisconsin. One of the our subscribers said, "Hey, look, you really need to find if there are any buried diesel tanks on the property because farmers back in the day before permits, they would bury stuff that they just didn't want to have around." And they also said something about manure pools that can seep into the groundwater, I guess. And I don't know anything about that, but it doesn't sound like a good thing to hit with a sod cutter.
Yeah, it's well, first off, if you're hitting it with a subsoiler, that subsoiler, remember, is only about 18 inches, so you're not going down that far. If you're hitting it with that, you've got bigger issues. I mean, for the most part, they have to disclose to you, and I remember when you were going through the agreement and all the paperwork for that, they have to disclose to you if there's anything buried on the property. It's part of one of the things that's a disclosure, like they make meth, did they have things buried in the property, are there any outstanding warrants or liens and stuff like that. They have to tell you that kind of stuff. So it's just definitely a challenging one. For the most part, I will tell you this, that in Wisconsin, and this is just from my experience, that you don't run into too many buried oil or fuel tanks, and the biggest reason why is because of the cold weather. They have to bury it so deep in the ground to get it below the frost line. Like if you're in Tennessee or you're in Texas or something like that, absolutely they buried that stuff all over the place. But for the most part in the Midwest, it wasn't a very popular thing to bury that stuff. You could possibly run into an old septic tank or a cistern or something like that, but you're going to hit something made of concrete at that point in time, and you'll know it. And then, quite honestly, those are very rare also. So
Gotcha. There's a quick question for Claire here. They're asking if you are ready for this move.
I am ready.
Do tell.
no.
It's too small here. There's not enough space to go roam, and we're just so close to everyone, so it can be hard to actually get stuff done, especially without people complaining.
Yeah, we're kind of tired of the whole everybody's in your business about everything. And, well, I'm ready. So
Yeah.
you're ready.
Especially silly stuff. I mean, chickens are not an issue.
Oh, yeah. Well. Okay, so back to this now. So moving on with different implements. Okay, that is a sod cutter, right? Is that the correct term for it?
Subsoiler.
Subsoiler. Okay, now let's talk about a harrow. A harrow.
Still got the subsoiler up on the screen, I think.
It's changed.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Now I'm learning with our new technical stuff. I'll have
There's
to see
a delay.
Harrow. So this again, same thing. If you look, see the little triangle on there? You can see where the top piece hooks in and then the two pins on the side.
Yeah.
This is another drag device. So your 3-point hitch will pick this up and then set it down. Those discs, let's say you decided instead of just having a regular garden, you wanted to have a bigger space. Like you wanted to have a 50 by 100 area or something like that, or something even bigger, an acre of area that you wanted to till and turn over and things like that. What this is it's got, you can get two types of wheels for it, ones that are discs and ones that are spikes. The ones in the front, you can see they have the spikes on them. As those turn, basically it churns up the top, 3-4 inches of soil. And so let's say you had a field full of grass and you were done with the grass season and you wanted to switch over to some other crop or something like that. This thing you just put on the back, set it down, and then you just drive around with it on the property and make different patterns and stuff like that. And what it'll do is it'll turn over whatever ground is on the top. It'll turn it over, put it underneath, and you'll end up basically cleaning up a pasture area or regrading an area. It's really good for like turning over areas. If let's say you have soybeans planted somewhere, and then now you want to switch it over to clover or something like that. It's a way to easily turn it over, and it's less expensive than buying a tiller, which is one of the next items that's going to be coming up on the list. So the drag is, you'll see these anywhere from as cheap as $400 up to $1,500. And the biggest difference is how big they are. Some of them are only 4 feet wide. Some of them are 7 feet wide. Some of them have 2 rows of them, so you'd have 4 sets of the wheels on them. Some of them only have 2. All sorts of different kind of options on that. But for the most part, for this, it's really good for if you have a 1 acre area that you want to turn over pretty quickly. You drop this thing on the back. There's no motorized parts, so you don't have to grease anything other than a couple circuits on the side of it to keep it rolling. And it just does its thing, and it's really easy, and it's a real simple tool that people can use on their properties. I found them as cheap as $200 on Craigslist.
Whoa.
Most of the time they're between $350 and $500.
Well, that is definitely something that we'll have to look into because we want to do a pretty big garden right off the bat.
This would be, when we're talking this thing, I mean, if you want to do a really big garden, this is like doing a football field, not like a small area. Like if you got this to just do a little, 40 by 60 area, you'd have it done in about 1 pass in about 30 seconds. So this
more power.
This is more like you want to do, 2 or 3 acres of something different and plant it out there.
That's interesting. Yeah. So now let's say that let's just say hypothetically that we know that some of the teenagers have been making ruts in a field with a truck. This would make short work of filling them out, right?
Absolutely, yeah. What it'll do is it'll turn over everything on the top, and then there's actually, I don't think I sent it to you, but there's a device called the Cultipacker, which is these cast iron steel wheels that you can put on something like this, and then you drive over and it packs everything back down again and makes it all flat. Nice. Like I said originally when we first started talking about tractors, you can get this stuff big and gigantic, you can get this stuff small. I mean, there's all different sizes of all these things. This is just kind of a smattering of, if you were going to Tractor Supply, these are probably the top 8 to 10 items that you will see out there and why you'd have them. I'm not suggesting you guys need all these, but we were talking about implements and stuff, and I know that once you start talking about it, everybody says, oh, what about this, what about that? So that's why I added those in there.
Well, and a lot of this stuff, I mean, since a lot of this stuff is very affordable, I would want to just keep my eyes open, find something on Craigslist for $50 or whatever, pick it up when you got extra coin, and save yourself a lot of hassle when it's time to start doing different work.
Yep.
So, okay.
You can find dual purpose in different things too. Like some different things, like we'll get into, like the tiller when we get to that one. The tiller itself, the cool thing about that is if you run it really shallow, you can easily take those ruts out like you're talking about versus, you know, you can go deep and, you know, rotor tilling. You guys don't know what rotor tillers do.
Yep. Okay, so here's a box blade. I'm assuming that you're going to flatten things with this.
Box blades do a couple of really cool things. Usually they have these metal tine pieces on the front of them called scarifiers. That's a straight blade.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, sorry. Let me see.
Did I label it wrong?
I think that's what I had it labeled as. I don't know if it was you or me. Because that's the one picture. I don't have another one of that.
Okay, well, we'll talk about what you have on the screen here. So that's a straight blade. This, by far, very cool piece of equipment in the sense that you can use it in the summer and in the winter. So remember how we were talking about clearing off your driveway in the wintertime?
Yep.
If you have a bucket on the front or you don't have a blade on the front of your tractor, you can get one of these. You put it on the back, drop it to the ground. That disc on the top actually will allow you to turn it back and forth so you can do two different things. And on those back blades, you can actually turn them all the way around. So if you back up, you could plow stuff as you go backwards. So what you use that for is grading things. I use mine all the time. Like the driveway gets rutted up, I take that thing out, I'll just drop it down, drag it, and away you go, and you're all set. The cool thing is they come in all different sizes. If you get a smaller size tractor, you can get a smaller size straight blade. If you get a larger size tractor, you can get a larger size blade. They come anywhere from 4 feet all the way up to, I think, like 7 or 8 feet for most tractors. Same thing, 3 points. There's no moving parts or anything like that on it, so it never breaks. I mean, mine, it's in bad shape. I hit it up with spray paint every once in a while and touch up the rusty spots, but other than that, it always works.
There's a comment from Vinigus, last name. Turn your back blade around and you can push the snow.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. So that one now, what's this going for price-wise?
Those you can find. When we bought ours, it was $350. You can buy brand new ones starting at like $500 up to $1,500, but it all depends on how wide you get. If you get a smaller size tractor, you got to get a smaller size blade. This is where this comes down to that conversation we had about, okay, if you get a 20 horse tractor versus a 40 horse tractor versus a 60 horse tractor, well, a 20 horse tractor can probably pull a 4 or 5 or 6 foot version of this fairly simply. A 40 will pull a 6 foot way easier, but it also could probably pull an 8. You know what I mean? So as your tractor gets bigger, so can your implements. But you also have to kind of realize how you're going to be using it. Like I looked at your driveway, and if you had an 8-foot plow on the tractor and you had a 60 horse tractor, in about 30 seconds, it would take you longer to put the blade onto the tractor and pull the tractor out to warm it up than it would be actually to use it.
Nice. All right, so I think I have a good idea what this one will do, but it's a finish mower.
By the way, just on the straight blade,
yeah,
that is one of the items that I would put on the list. Because like if you have a concrete floor inside your barn and you want to get all the gunk off your floor or your barn, drop the blade down, set it down gently on the thing, and then just pull it forward and scrape the whole thing clean like a squeegee.
There you go. That works.
It just has so many different uses. You can push, you can pull, you can do snow, you can do earth. Let's say you wanted to build a road out to back into your field or whatever it is, and there's kind of a flat area. Drop the blade, just plow it forward. You can pitch it to the side so it dumps all the spoils off to the right or to the left. Like somebody said, you can turn it around and have it face the other direction. So if you want to backblade something, I mean, it's super easy.
Very cool. So this is high on the list of implements.
Behind a front end loader on a tractor, I would say this is probably a fairly commonly used piece. One, it's cheap, and two, it can be used for a lot of things.
Nice. Okay. Moving on to the finish mower. This is just the grass cutter, right?
Basically, yes. So 2 weeks ago, I said I had a pet peeve. Remember we said we'd get back?
Yeah.
And I was I was really bent on a shit. We ran out of time, and then I said, well, let's just wait till we talk about implements, and I'll explain what my pet peeve is. So people will buy tractors that are, anywhere from $5,000 up to $20,000, right? And this is an implement that can run big pieces of equipment and do all sorts of things on your property. The problem is like I've seen people have BX25 tractors, and you know who you are out there on the internet. And they have a mowing deck on the bottom of their tractor. So they're burning time on their tractor mowing the lawn. So you bought a $20,000 tractor to mow your front yard? That seems ridiculous. Why would you use the hours and the minutes and the wear and the tear on something that expensive to mow the lawn when you could easily buy a $500 lawnmower that does the exact same thing, and the parts when they break aren't thousands and thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
So that's what brings me to this type of mower, which is it hooks up. So see the rod on the back of it inside the triangle? That hooks up to your PTO output on the back, and it allows the blades to spin. And then the wheels on it actually can be set to whatever height that you want, and they're on a spring loaded. So as you continue to go, you can move it along. The thing is most of these finishing mowers, one of the commentaries I always tell the people is you have to have a little bit bigger of a tractor. You can run a brush cutter on a 25 horse tractor, but to run the finishing mower and have it cut very well, you probably want to be closer to a 40 horse tractor. So this is for a bigger tractor, but for the amount of grass and space and stuff like that that I know that you have around the house, to hook that up to the tractor and to be able to mow large areas of grass very effectively, mow a whole pasture, mow a whole front lawn, and all that kind of stuff, it's much easier to pull this piece of equipment around than buying actually the mower deck. And to give you an example, the mower deck on the bottom of a Kubota BX25 is about $3,000. Something like this, I've seen them as cheap as $1,200. So why wouldn't you buy something like this, and if you had to mow large areas versus buying a $3,000 underdeck mower that's built onto the tractor?
Well, that brings me to a good point that I have learned that there are three basic types of tractor tires. And you've got the ones that are really big, they've got the big, humongous ribs on them.
Yep.
So you wouldn't want to be driving that through your yard. It's going to tear it all up. You would have to have those specialized, smoother tires, correct?
Yeah, so there's three types of tires. There's turf tires, there's R tires, and then there's ag tires. And basically, the difference is the aggressiveness of the tread between all of them. So, like on the Ford tractor, that has ag tires on it, big knobby tires. You don't really want to pull them on the grass. I've seen people again who have a BX25 tractor or a Ford or whatever it is, and they have smooth tread tires on them. I'm like, so why would you get those tires if you have to go out and work in a field? Because those smooth tread tires aren't going to work in a field. You need at least an R1. Like for us, I went R1 instead of Ag 1 just because we don't have as aggressive of a terrain to go with. But at the same point in time, you're exactly right. If you're going to be mowing the lawn with your tractor and doing that kind of mowing, you're going to, and you want to get a nice finish to it, you're going to have to get finished tires on that. And you don't want to swap your tires in and out of your tractor. That's why I said buy a Craftsman lawnmower for $500 with smooth tires on it and mow your lawn, and buy something like this if you need to cut sections of hay or clear out a pasture or all those types of things.
Excellent. Now, in terms of tires, I think we're going to have to get to tires on a different day because prices on those things, it seems like you really have to know if you've got a good amount of life in them because that can really, really increase the amount of cost you have in a tractor right off the bat. And I wouldn't know what I'm looking at.
Well, I'll give you the quick 411 on tires, which is when you look at the side of the tire, what's the condition of the wall? Is it chipped? Is it faded? Is it white? Does it have the little cracks in it? That kind of stuff. When you look at the tread and you look at the angle of the treads as they come up to the flat piece, do those have cracks and pits in it? Are there nails in the tire? Are there spots that are got pits in them? The other thing is depending on your tire, you can look up and see what the riser should be on it. So the tire might have, a 8 millimeter, or it might have, a 20 millimeter, or whatever the height ratio is. You can look at the tires to figure out if you need new ones. The thing I tell people is when you buy a tractor, spend a little money and buy a set of brand new tires because you know where those tires have been. You'll have them for the whole time, and you probably will never replace them ever. You'll probably never have a flat tire or any of that kind of stuff, which is the biggest reason that people have problems with their tractors is you're using it and the tire's flat. The guys from Pure Life for Living just had a backhoe, and he just posted a picture on Instagram today. He's got a flat tire with it already. It just happens. If you have new tires, probably don't have that.
So now I've seen that guys will fill the tires with different stuff other than air. Tell me about this Because
Yep.
is that for, you know, getting more torque on the ground, or is there another reason for that?
A lot of reasons to do it. One is one thing about tractors is you want to have weight and you want to have counterbalanced weight and things like that. And we'll get into all that stuff at some point in time. Give you an example: if you have a bucket on the front of it and you have a bunch of material in that bucket and you're lifting it up, you're going to want something on the back of the tractor to equalize the weight. Or you might want more weight on the tractor. I don't want to say holding it to the ground, but holding it down so that then you can get better torque out of it and things like that. Example: our tractor, our tires, I actually had them filled. One, so they're very heavy, but the second item is it's filled with an expansive foam inside of it, and I actually have nails stuck through the tires, and I pulled the nails out of it, and I never get a flat tire. I will never have a flat tire on my tractor. So I'm driving out in the woods, driving on tree stumps and whatever else, I just drive right over them like it's nothing.
Wow, now that expanding foam, I'm assuming it's not something you pick up at Home Depot like with great stuff.
No, I ended up. It was all said and done. It wasn't as expensive as you think. I spent $300 to fill all four tires.
Well, that seems like a great deal when you consider, you know, the lifespan of those things. Now they're going to be bulletproof until you just wear out a tread.
Yep. The biggest thing is that that's exactly what it comes down to. Is I don't think I'll ever have a flat tire or a flat tire issue, and the bigger problem is I'll run out of tread. The other thing is it added significant weight, so I don't have any slipping as I'm driving. So it's when I'm using the snowblower on it, I actually don't even have chains on the tires. Because that's one thing that people do is they'll put chains on the tires or during the winter and stuff like that. I've used it for 3 winters now, and I have no chains on the tires, and I've never had any slippage or anything like that. I've been out in the mud and whatever out in the woods, no problems whatsoever or anything like that. So, and I have R1 tires. I don't have ag tires. I went the halfway between because I didn't want a situation where, I mean, you've seen our property. If I'm driving in the orchard, I don't want to be wrecking the grass in the orchard,
Right.
but I also need enough tread that I'm not going to get stuck in the woods. So I went that halfway.
Gotcha. So, okay, here's another device that you sent, and this, let me turn off the finish blade. This is it says brush cutter.
Oh, the brush hog. Absolutely the coolest piece of equipment that I own. It's the most violent thing that I own too. I'll tell you, it is. I mean, it's a scary piece of equipment. You have to make sure that you get one of these that's matched to the side of your tractor.
To
In
the
the sense
size?
of like, what's that?
To the size of your tractor?
Yeah. So, give you an example. I have a 25 horse tractor, so I have a 5 foot wide brush cutter. If I had a bigger tractor, I could get a bigger one. Now, these things are really, really interesting because the way they work is the blades are on a rotating piece and on a slip device. So as it's spinning around, if it hits something, centrifugal force is pushing those blades to the outside as it's spinning. Well, let's say it hits something really heavy underneath, that blade folds underneath and it'll spin around and then it'll re-catch up its speed. So you'll hear it kind of, what's the word, like speed up. Like you'll hear it go, when you fire this up, instead of like a lawnmower where you hear it going like and it goes right away, when I fire this thing up, it goes and you can hear it spinning up. And then if I hit something, it stops and then you hear it spin up again. And that's part of the slip clutch so that it doesn't break, because what this thing is for is, I don't think you guys have too many trees on your property or heavy brush areas that you need to clear out. But for me, I have ATV trails. Once a year, I'll hook this thing up and I'll drive down the ATV trail, and I can take down saplings that are, yay big around like nobody's business. I can just like, oh, I want a trail right there and just drive straight through. And this thing just spins everything except for rocks it'll take out. So, and it just grinds everything down and so on. Actually, somebody just posted that they were testing one of these against a steel post on Rango Star's channel this week, and basically it's a huge violent cutter, but it does. If you have a homestead and you have woods, you have heavy brush, you have an area where like buckthorn or some brambles grew up or whatever it is, you just drive right through with this thing and it'll just mow it all down. It doesn't
Wow.
do a great job, but it does a very effective job.
So now, what's something like that go for?
So these are a little bit more expensive. They start out at about $700 to $800 and go up to about $2,000. The differences between them are: does it have a a slip clutch or a shear pin, which is if it hits something, what happens?
Right.
And then how many blades does it have underneath it? Usually they have two, sometimes they have three, sometimes they have two spinners, sometimes they only have one, and then the size of it. So you can have, a 5 foot, a 6 foot, an 8 foot, but man, I will tell you this, it is a awesome piece of equipment. Not for you guys. You wouldn't have very much use for this. I've seen the layout of the property. I've looked at the maps.
Right.
This doesn't help you guys, but if you have a homestead that has trails on it or anything like that, you can get one of these. Cool thing about them is a lot of places rent them.
Oh yeah, and
You
then
could rent the weekend and go.
yeah. So, but what happens if you break it? What do they do?
They're actually, I will say this, they're pretty hard to break. I mean, if you have huge rocks and stuff like that, and that blade's constantly hitting the rocks, they might charge you to resharpen the blades and stuff. But I'll tell you this, that my brush cutter, I was driving down the trail, and I picked up about a softball-sized rock underneath that thing, and it went boom, 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 boom off all the metal things and came popping out of it, and was split up in 3 pieces. I stopped and lifted the blade up in the air thinking there was something wrong with it, and there weren't even any nicks on any of the blades.
That's a pretty tough piece of equipment.
It is. I'll tell you this, it's very heavy and it's very dangerous. I will recommend that if you do this, like the first rule is when I go out to mow, I'm going by myself. No family, nobody standing 10 feet behind me or off to the sides or whatever it is, because this thing is violent. It's throwing stuff different directions. It's chewing up, smashing. It's destruction on wheels. So our rule in our house is you don't go when I go out. But I'll tell you this, that I can do our entire property. We have 7 miles of trails. I can do it in an entire weekend and take down everything, and it's all perfectly smooth. It looks like a state park out there.
Wow. Yeah. No. We learned the stay away from the mower thing firsthand. We had a small piece of property down in Kentucky for a while, and I was cutting the grass, and I didn't realize that David had come out, and he was still about a good 45, 50 feet away, and I'm just driving the tractor, and then I hear him yell. And evidently we caught a piece of wire, just a regular old wire, and it caught him right in the face. Went right in there. And fortunately, it wasn't an eye or anything like that, and he turned out to be okay. But yeah, that stuff is scary.
Yep.
And I see some people do some wacky stuff with lawnmowers, pulling the guards off and the chutes off. I'm like, what do you got, a death threat?
Yeah, ours has on the back of it. There's a series of chains that are hanging down on the back. And as the blade, or sorry, on the front, I should say, and as the blades are flinging around, if it hits something, whatever you hit will hit those chains,
Slow
and then
down.
it loses all the momentum, and it basically drops down and out of there. Our biggest threat to our mower is rocks. More than anything else, we have rocks. And I have rocks on the property that'll stop ours dead in track. I've never sheared a pin because we have a slip clutch on it, and if it hits something, it basically just, you hear it go dunk, and then this pin just spins super fast because all the momentum goes to that. And then it slows down, and then it recatches, and then re-engages, and then it spins itself back up again.
All right, this last one of the graphics that we have here looks like it's a pretty self-explanatory device, but it says here we have a landscape rake. Do tell.
Yeah. I myself am a fan of the landscape rake. The main piece of the landscape rake is it allows you to weed an area or drag through an area and get rocks out or break up the soil or smooth something out. Any of those things you can do it. It's the same exact principle as a box blade. No moving parts, no anything like that. It hooks up on the 3-point. Actually, you can see the 3-point hooked up on the back of that, and then the rod comes out. That set of tines, all those metal tines kind of bounce as you're driving along. And basically what they do is you can drag through an area. And imagine taking a metal tine rake and raking something. You could use this for dragging through. Let's say you have a pasture that has a whole bunch of bedding down on it. You drop this thing down and just drag it out. Or if you're in the barn and you need to clean out straw, like somebody said, just put it in there and drag it out.
Well, that's one thing that we're actually going to have to deal with. I don't know. We won't be able to do it with the second floor, but there's a good 8 inches to 10 inches of just straw that's laying on that whole second floor. That'll be a fun clean. It's big too. So, but now this looks like this is just more, you just want to make something look nice. Now you said weeding. How would you weed with this?
Well, let's say you have, like in the springtime, your garden is ready to go, but you got all that stuff kind of on the top, like the dead weeds and all the stuff from the year before or whatever it is.
Right.
You just drop it down and just drag right over the top, and it pulls all that stuff out and leaves the soil behind.
Okay, so this one doesn't look like, I would guess this has got to be a $500 implement. How close am I?
You can get one for brand new. I think I saw some in Tractor Supply. You should get Tractor Supply to sponsor us as much as times I say their name.
I know. Well, I like Rural King better, but I guess there's some really big stores up there, the farm stores.
Rural King actually isn't up in our area because there's somebody that we work with. Rural King's more in your area. So Rural King and Tractor Supply are the exact same kind of stores. It's just Tractor Supplies are up in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Rural Kings are in Ohio and and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have both here, and the Rural King. Oh yeah, they have fresh hot popcorn that's free. You can just go and scoop it, and a lot of the stores you can go get free peanuts, and you just throw the shells on the ground willy nilly, just like that. Free coffee. What Tractor Supply? They need to catch up.
And sugar.
America.
Land of the free, home of the free popcorn.
Popcorn and throw the peanut shells on the ground.
How you like me now? Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So okay, well this is pretty good. Now I actually did I heard your request, and I found some bits of equipment that I wanted to see what you thought about.
Okay.
Now, because we think we've landed on get a tractor, not a skid steer, but get a tractor with a bucket, and then if you can get implements, great, but start there. But I found a skid steer. Now, I just want to see what you think about this. Here it is. It's a Case 1835C for $6,200, and looks like it's had some rebuilds on it. Hours. What is a good amount of hours on a skid steer?
Ooh, I might have to deflect it to Matt or Ross on that one. I don't know on that one. I couldn't even fathom a guess on a skid steer what a good amount of hours are. Because the thing on skid steers is you have moderate and small amount usage, and then you guys got like my buddy Ross, who their team uses their skid steer 8 hours a day every day for the last 10 years, kind of thing, and it's got a gajillion hours on it, and then they sell them used and so on. I wouldn't even know. I can't read it very well, but I'm guessing the price of that skid steer somewhere between probably like $7,500 and $10,000, somewhere in there.
6,200.
Okay, tires look a little flat on it.
They look like they don't have a whole lot of tread either.
Yeah, that's what I meant by flat. They're smooth.
Gotcha. Noah's Sharks, 1962. I'm not stuck on a skid steer. The only thing that the reason why I'm questioning whether or not we go with, I'm leaning like 90% to a tractor. However, the barn that we have is a very large old dairy barn, and the roof is not that high. So any kind of tractor that would have a really higher profile, or even like a cab on it, I would have to take the cab off to get it in there to use it. I don't think it would be usable. But here is I found a John Deere. Now this is John Deere 4020 with cab and loader, 8250. Now that looks to me like a solid piece of equipment. The tires look good. However, that's getting close up to my very, very top end. And I don't know if I want to go so close to the ultimate of my limit is 10 grand. What do you think of that tractor though?
Couple items on the tractor. One thing I would definitely do, and we had to do this on our property too, and before we get into this specific tractor, measure the heights of your doors. Because the one thing is when I looked at the photos of those barns that you had, that's a good looking tractor, but I don't think you're ever going to be able to park it inside, because I think that the cab is probably taller than the doors on the lower side, and you won't be able to get it into the upper because the upper won't support the weight. So your idea of getting it into the barn to do work or whatever it is, I don't think you're going to be able to do it just because of how tall it is. So you'll have to think about that for a little bit. If it didn't have the cab on it, you could easily drive it into the barn. But with the cab on there, that's going to add a complexity to it. The cab on it too, there's another piece to it, which is how much time are you going to spend on the tractor? As example, are you going to be taking care of the hayfield? Are you going to cut it, or is somebody else? Because if you're going to cut it, cab's probably a good idea. If somebody else is going to cut it, there's no reason to have a cab, because, I mean, you're not going to be out there. And for the time that you're out in the wintertime, throw a coat and a hat on. You're in Wisconsin, learning to love the cold, and, drive a tractor without a cab.
Yeah. Right now, my plan is there's a farmer that knows the property very well, knew the former owner very well, and has already offered to do the field on shares. So that's the plan for the hay right now. I think something smaller would suit us a lot better. Just something that I can get into the barn I'm not so scared of the cold as a lot of people are, and I've got some nice cold weather clothing, so I'm not. I see that, if you had to be out in it a lot, a cab would be absolutely a godsend, but I think I'll be all right.
Somebody asked a question about why wouldn't the barn support a tractor? My commentary is, and this is just looking at it, is the lower door on a barn tends to be a shorter door. So I would be worried that you'd hit the cab on the lower one, and then the upper one is timber based. And if you have a tractor that size, I don't think you're going to be driving a timber based tractor over the top of it. That, and I don't believe there's a ramp that gets you to the main.
No, there's not.
So you couldn't do that. Somebody posted you're going to be pushing poop around in the barn.
That's
Let's go back to a really simple thing that we talked about, which was, why don't you get a four-wheeler that has a blade on the front of it and you can push it back and forth inside the barn?
Yeah, I saw that David had mentioned that in the comments section earlier, and that's not a bad idea. I don't have anything against it. The one thing I want to do though is I want to make sure that whatever we're investing our money in is not going to be a one-trick pony. Like, I don't want to buy just one thing that'll do just one thing. So I like the idea of an ATV a lot because you can haul tools around with it. I could pull a small trailer with it. I could do a lot of stuff with it. And I'm thinking along those lines of either a small tractor or ATV. But I like the idea of having implements, so I'm really siding with the tractor idea.
I think that, I mean, if we could find you a tractor that's somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000, and find an ATV around that $3,000 mark with a little thing on the back and then a trailer and get a blade on it and a couple small implements, you would be rocking hardcore. I mean, I think that's, if I was in your position, that's how I would start. Because then if it doesn't work out on the tractor, you can get a bigger tractor or you can get a smaller tractor. And if the ATV doesn't work out, you can get a bigger ATV or a smaller ATV. You know?
Excellent. And now, actually, Noah Shark, 1962, you're bringing up a point that I actually wanted to deal with today, and that is the down low on Dookie. One of the things we're going to have to deal with as we have, animals and as we grow our herd and our whatever is we're going to deal with a lot of poop. And we know how to do poop on a small level scale. We don't know how to deal with poop when you're dealing with hundreds of pounds of poop at a time. Let's talk Dookie, man. Do we now? If I've got four cows and I've got some goats and stuff like that, and I'm gonna have to scrape out chickens and all that kind of stuff. I'm thinking that there are going to be devices that will help me do it with a lot less stress. And then what do I do with it? Because I can only have X amount of compost. I mean, manure spreaders. Let's talk Dookie.
I am not an expert on animal feces and excrement.
Yeah. No, I thought you were full of it, bro.
But I am a sales guy and I work in a sales organization, so you guys know I know poop.
Right.
Anyhow, the first thing I think of is you're going to need to get it out of wherever you're working. So you go in the barn and you flick the stuff out of the stalls and into the main concrete slab area. And that's where I was thinking the four-wheeler, drop the blade and just push it out to the end of the door, right?
Right.
So now poop is all outside. You at least got it outside. You're not going to be able to get a tractor inside to scoop poop. That's what you have kids for. Claire's going to be scooping poop for you. So basically, you get it outside, then you use the bucket on your tractor to pick it up and move it to wherever you are. It depends on how much poop you have on whether you should invest in spreaders and things like that, because you can get a spreader for the back of your tractor, but the issue that you run into is, I believe, and I could ask Brad how much a spreader runs right now because I got him online here, but he told me when we were talking, those are in the thousands and thousands of dollars. It almost would be easier to just scoop it in the bucket of the tractor and go and just kind of feather it out of the bucket. I mean, you'll get good with the controls and stuff like that. So that would be, something to look at or think about. The biggest piece is figure out a space to store it. You're going to have to find a place to do it and then figure out a way to rotate it into your stuff. Because the other thing is you don't want to take fresh manure and just dump it right on your plants. You want to have it sit down. You want to have that nitrogen cool down in it and things like that. So, if you have like somebody said in here, use a landscaping rake or anything like that. So make a pile of manure and let it sit there for a little while. And then once it cools down and kind of the nitrogen gets out of it and it's not as hot, then scoop it up and put it on there and then use your landscaping rake to rake it out flat and and till it into your soil.
Or I could just have my son Jonathan use our little Ford Escape, put like a roll cage or something on it, and he can just drive through it several times, you know, to spread out.
I was thinking if you got a snowblower, couldn't you just run it up with a snowblower?
Gross.
You know?
Gross. Yeah, but somebody did mention that, you know, hey, it's not going to make a stink if you get it outside during the winter. It's going to be frozen. So that's one thing,
Yep.
I guess.
That stuff will all warm up and woo, it'll get right.
Heck yeah. Well, and I've seen guys that'll actually use the poop as a way to naturally heat greenhouses. They'll actually use that to heat up a greenhouse.
I've heard of that. The item on that though is people use that. They actually use horse manure for that, not cow manure.
And it's because horse manure is not as hot, quote unquote.
No, it's
Nitrogen.
actually hotter. It's actually hotter. It's got higher nitrogen in it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, before we move on, are you doing a show tonight? And if so, give us a little bit of a teaser.
Tonight's show, yes, I'm going to be on for an hour. Actually, so last time we were supposed to be on for like an hour or whatever it was. Then all of a sudden the missus and Cameron showed up and we talked about ice cream and all the other things. Tonight, one of the things we're going to talk about is this piece of the property. I don't know if you've seen this map before or not,
Yep.
but this is our wood yard and the big grass field area, and then here's where the apple orchard is, and our pumpkin patch, and the barn, and all that stuff. I don't know if you guys can see this or not,
Yeah.
or if I'm hold up, but we're going to talk about this on the tabletop for a little bit. We've kind of come to a decision of what we're going to do with this space, and I kind of want to talk about it a little bit and see what people's thoughts are for what we're going to do there. And then the second thing is I've got a new video coming out where actually we tour this whole location. It's going to come out tomorrow, but I'm going to do a little preview for whoever who shows up at the live stream tonight.
Very cool, very cool. And also, for those of you who don't know the Weekend Homestead channel, you really need to get over there, hit that subscribe button. Will does a lot of cool stuff, and I've said he's like a millennial man because he owns a tech company, but he also owns a pyrotechnic company. He's been a firefighter and many other things, as well as a sage wisdom, a beacon of knowledge when it comes to poop and all things tractors. So you're gonna enjoy his wit and go on over there and subscribe as a thank you. But tonight we're for sure on. That's good. So when we're done here, give him 5 minutes, and then he's gonna go live again.
And here's the thing too. By the way, I think the term that I want to say Brandon uses is Renaissance man. I think is the term or whatever. Something weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I hope you guys see we're doing some things differently. Today is the first day we've done this where he's actually calling me with a Skype call, and I've put him through a piece of software called OBS, and then it goes to YouTube. And I've been surprised at how smooth it's gone, even though there's a big lag on his end. He's waiting to see comments, and I think it's a good 30 seconds before he sees something change. But
yep.
We'll get the sound worked out. I'll figure that out by next time so that it's more volume and crisper and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to open up, as we've got like 8 minutes left, what are topics that you guys would like to hear? Because quite frankly, I want to know it all. And so if you guys want to hear, you know, we're jumping into this farming life with 2 feet, man, 2 feet all in. But I could talk tractors for a long time. But what are some topics that you guys might want to hear about? And we'll read as many of those as we can. Oh wow, boy, you look good, man. You look handsome there all of a sudden. What happened?
I'm just saying. You said we had to do some reading, so I got my reading glasses on. I guess it's something in my eye here.
Yeah. Twister damage. Turkey manure is bad, is what they're saying. Hey, Mike Miller.
I would have to say, out of all of them, I thought that like pig manure and stuff like that was probably the worst out of all of it. But you know what? I don't know if you're going to have that much. I mean, you're going to have poop to deal with, but it's not going to be like a dairy farm where you have 800 cows and you have to deal with, you know, a giant poop, you know, pond or whatever, you know, how they pump it out into a pond and then.
Oh.
It's gross.
No, thank you. No, thank you. So, oh, by the way, I found a bunch of ATVs, and I could not, for the life of me, find more than a handful of Hondas where you were saying, you know, my buddy's Polaris won't fire up in the snow, and I couldn't find any Hondas.
Hondas are hard to come by. I mean, it's one of those things where they come up and they sell right away. It's one of those things. So for us, we have two Hondas, and it's the only four wheeler. Oh, somebody commented about the Lincoln Park singer. I was actually on the list to do the pyro for their show on August 15th, and
Did he get hurt? What
uh,
happened?
he committed suicide last night.
No, really? For real?
Yeah,
I did not know that. That's
yeah.
unfortunate.
It came out as news at like 3 o'clock. Who was it? Chris? Who's the other gentleman who just recently died?
Chris Cornell from Soundgarden.
Yeah. So he and him were good friends, and today is Chris Cornell's birthday.
Oh, wow.
He would have been 53 today.
That's unfortunate. That is unfortunate.
He was married. It was his second wife, and has 6 kids, 2 twins, 5 years old.
Well, I don't have much to say about that. It sounds like a pretty selfish thing to do.
It was tough, It's one of those things. It's hard on everybody around him. I mean, I was reading some of the little articles and stuff like that. It's what it is.
Yeah. Well, with that, here's the thing. We're gonna keep plugging away with farm type stuff, guys, and I think we're gonna call it tonight because I'm out of notes. Next week I'm gonna come with more notes. I spent too much time making our little graphics here and stuff instead of coming up with more topics. But next week I'll be ready to go with a lot more stuff. And
things.
You got two things. You got 2 things. Mark it, set, go.
Mark it, set, go. First item is, so when is the move date? I know that you guys have talked about this a number of times, and I've had a bunch of people after we get off the show see in the chat, hey, when are they moving? Like, when is the day? Do you guys have that figured out?
The 7th of next month. We're getting the truck 3 days before. We'll be loading it up, and then we close on the house that morning, and that afternoon we drive. We're going to go halfway the first day. Then the next day we're going to be in Wisconsin.
So then the other question is, so since you guys are moving to Wisconsin, when's the housewarming party for all the guests in the chat here all to come to the house and hang out?
Yeah. Well, why aren't you coming to help unload boxes? That's the real question.
Yeah, let's have a box party.
Yeah,
cardboard boxes.
Yeah, you guys are just gonna wait till I'm cooking brats? You guys a lazy bunch of yahoos.
That's exactly how you should do it. Like when you're just done, like, oh, we just got here. Oh, okay. Where's the neighbor?
Yeah, we're actually gonna probably have some kind of a party, get together sort of thing, like we did here with the folks that didn't get to come because it's a long way to drive up there, and we're thinking about doing that. We'll try and find like some central location because we don't know how many of you guys out there are really, so maybe not wanting you actually at the house, but yeah, you know how that goes. We'll go to your place. How's that, bro?
That's fine. I'm having a wedding there in 2 weeks anyways. We're just about done with everything. We're building the outhouse and all that.
The outhouse.
I'm actually, well, so the upper is off grid, as you know, and we have an outhouse there, but it's not very in good condition. And so since the family is carpenters, I said, hey, how about we work out some trades? Maybe you build a couple things for me and you guys have the wedding at no cost. So I said, one of the things we need to do is build a new outhouse. So we're building a really nice outhouse on the property for that. And then they can use it for the wedding and whatever. And then when they leave, we have a nice outhouse up there so that, that's taken care of. And then we've got all sorts of stuff. We're going to do a little pyro for them for their wedding, and we're going to have a good time during that. Probably about 100 people. It'll be the first time we ever had that many people up on the homestead, and we'll see how it goes.
Oh, you got to do tractor rides, man. Hay rides.
Actually, we have a trailer full of hay on the property. What I don't have is a flatbed trailer to put the hay on to actually haul it around, but I would for sure in a second do that. But we don't have it.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we first went up there to see if we were going to like this property to purchase it, the trailer that I was pulling that busted would have been perfect because the sides pull off and it's made of thick and it's a big old trailer. But I think the Department of Transportation has officially done something with it because I did not see it there when we went back.
So one question that somebody had in the chat was about greenhouses and if we can get grants for greenhouses. I don't know, but I'm going to put it down as a note, and maybe we can talk about it. I know we talked last week about this grand greenhouse project that I'm possibly working on. I'm going to put down if you can get a grant for it or how that works, and we'll talk about it in a future show. So
Yeah.
subscribe to Brad's channel, and when we do this again next Thursday, we'll talk about greenhouses for a little bit if you're cool with that.
Absolutely, and I've actually done some study on it, and you can get grants for greenhouses, but not just greenhouses. Young farmers, farmers who are female, farmers who are female who have American Indian blood in them, you can get money for a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, I hate to say unfortunately, you don't have to really show a lot that you did a lot in exchange for the money. Um, from what I'm reading, but I'll bring some information on what I've studied up on the grants, because there's a lot of loan programs, but fewer grants, but there still are grant programs out there for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're looking at. I've been talking about this, and I actually have the drawings. Maybe next week I'll post the drawings, or I'll send them to you, and you guys can bring them up on the screen, and you can see kind of the drawing of what we're thinking of doing. But I brought the size back a little bit. Now we're 16 feet wide by 24 feet long versus 16 by 40, just to try to keep in that budget range that we were talking about.
That's going to be really cool, and I personally would love to go greenhouse only for garden. I just don't know, man. That's a building that if I didn't get help with it, that would be pricey, brother.
That's exactly what we're doing. Is I'm going to have and this is what I'm trying to figure out is, and maybe we have people in the comments. Do a favor for me. I'm going to ask this question to the people in the comments, and you guys tell me if this is big enough or not. It'll have a raised bed inside of it that's 20 feet long by 3 feet wide, 3 of them inside of the of there. So you have basically a 3 foot wide by 20 foot long box, 3 of them basically wide.
Yeah.
And it'll be little walkways so you can get around all sides of them. Then up on the walls, we'll put some little pots and stuff like that. And I got a little water system for it and stuff like that. So, question is, do you think that's enough of a garden for a family of 4?
Yes.
Everything else too.
If you did intense, like the really super intense planting methods and the way that you'll fertilize it, yes, I do. And we can hash that out, and we can start with that next week. Because in my opinion, if you're really on top of your garden, you don't need as much space as commercial gardeners or commercial farmers do, because they're going with the big machines, and where you don't need that. I mean, have you seen the trellis systems that they'll have for the tomatoes? I've seen trellis systems that go up 24 feet in the air, nothing but tomatoes stacked up. So I don't know how many tomatoes you guys need, but you might only need 4 to 6 plants if you're doing them right.
Well, that's what I've seen too. Is I've seen these containers where, like, one of the ideas that we had was we'll have the long beds on the outside, and then through the middle I'll have a bed, but then also on the ends of those beds I'll have some of those tall boxes where the plants grow into the sides of the boxes, so I can go tall with it. Like peas, for example, I'll have a trellis at the end that goes straight up, and then the peas can just grow right up the side of the trellis, and that's how they'll grow. And I don't need a lot of surface area for it. I just need height.
Yep. Well, it's time. It's 9 o'clock. Thank you, Will, for coming on. Thank you guys, everybody in the live chat. We are so grateful that you show up. We're going to get our farm nerdiness on again next week. But before we do, Will, you have the final word, sir.
I'd have to say, if I don't talk to you guys after the live show here, we've got the live show right after this, so make sure you hop over our channel and check it out. Otherwise, if I don't talk to you for the weekend, everybody have a good weekend.
Party on, Wayne.
Party on, Garth.